I think that I've never really had a good sense of self-worth. That I've never really believed in myself, like, fully, you know?
Welcome, Zelda. What should I call you, by the way?
Yeah, Zelda's fine.
Okay. Welcome, Zelda. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think this was prompted because, recently gained back all the weight that I lost from, I guess, dieting and working out. Was kind of upset about it, demotivated, and I kind of reached out to you and your community. And Forbearance mentioned a book called Intuitive Eating. So I've just been kind of diving into that and thinking that dieting hasn't been working. So maybe I just need to change my relationship with food.
How did it feel when you regained the weight?
Awful.
Can you help me understand the awful?
Yeah. So, I mean, COVID hit. So that kind of put me into like weird state of mind, anxiety, depression. I started to eat more. And as I gained weight, I don't know, I just felt worse. I felt guilty gaining weight. And I don't know, now that I've gained it all back, I can just feel it.
What did you feel guilty about?
Guilty that I had, I guess, broken my diet, my weight loss. I had worked so hard to get down to 127, and then I couldn't stop everything from coming back. So I felt really guilty about failing myself, I guess.
That sounds like I get the sense of you almost felt powerless to stop
it.
Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, it did. It felt like I couldn't do anything.
It's like you're almost on autopilot, and your body is these actions are happening, and the weight's coming back, and it's almost hopeless. Does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, definitely. It felt hopeless, and it felt like without the structure from dieting. So I tried keto and their rules, and without those rules, I couldn't stop eating correctly, I guess.
So it sounds like the structure and rules is really helpful for you.
Yeah. Well, it was to get me down to the 127, and it felt good. But I guess what I'm learning now through the intuitive eating book is that the restriction is what causes most people to bounce back after a diet. Mm-hmm. Is that you restrict so much that when you stop the diet, you just binge.
Very good. Very good conclusions. But before we get to conclusions, because the conclusions are good, I want to hear more raw data points about your experience and whatnot. So I'm going to pivot a little bit. And can you tell me what it was like growing up?
Yeah. What's specifically?
Just whatever comes to mind about what it was like, defining moments, or I shouldn't say defining moments, just what comes to mind when I ask you, what was it like growing up, family, that kind of stuff.
It was, yeah. So growing up, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and my family was very religious, Southern Baptist. And there were a lot of rules in the house. There are a lot of rules to abide by. And I don't know, it's good because I had access to a lot of things. My mom definitely wanted me to have anything that I wanted. So I got food, games, whatever, whenever I wanted it. Uh, but growing up in a Southern Baptist household and realizing that I might be gay didn't go too well because that broke the rules, right? So that was kind of a difficult part of growing up, is like high school, college, kind of coming out and dealing with that. But then,
can I ask you
like,
something? What did that
yeah,
feel like what did that feel like having all of these strict rules on you and thinking that you might be breaking them?
what did it feel like? I mean, there's definitely a lot of guilt, right? Felt very guilty, like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm not supposed to do this. So you just, or at least for me, I just kind of like had to like sit secretly with my guilt, I guess.
That
Couldn't
sounds
tell anybody.
that sounds so lonely.
Oh yeah. Like yeah, and isolating. And especially when you've surrounded yourself in a community that doesn't really accept it, even more isolating and not really knowing where to go, who to talk to.
Yeah. So, sorry, I interrupted you. You're talking about after. I think were you about to talk about after that, high school and stuff?
I was going to talk about, growing up and my relationship with food because, I sort of see the pattern that I was raised on in my nephew. My nephew currently lives with my mom and my stepdad. They're having to raise him at the moment, and I just see all these bad habits that I grew up with. He's having to go through as well, and it's just like it sucks because I don't think my mom ever taught me like a good relationship with food. It was like eat when you feel like it, and we eat 3 times a day, but you can also like snack and you know it's just, and it's not like good food. Like you're allowed to just like eat sweets if you feel sad. You're allowed to eat sweets just when you're bored. And I think I picked up a lot of that, and I haven't really learned. That's what it is I haven't learned to like listen to when I'm actually hungry and when I'm actually full, because growing up it just seems like that you ignore all of that and you just eat when I tell you, kind of thing.
So when you're
Uh,
growing up, you also had the habits of eating sweets when you were sad and eating when you were bored.
yeah.
How has that changed or progressed over the years, especially since you left your family when you were now? I'm assuming you don't live with them anymore, right?
Right. um so hasn't some things haven't changed. One bad habit that I still do is like walk into the kitchen and just stare at all the food and think about what should I put in my mouth right now? What here can I just eat? And like I kind of hate that I learned that because I'm not hungry. I'm just going in there like this could be fun. Um
What's fun about it?
and then it's eating? I don't know. Like, obviously we get like a sensation when we eat food, a little dopamine hit, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun to just, I don't know, snack experiment, feel that little hit of, I don't know, goodness.
Yeah. So one thing I want to zero in on is I'm noticing a trend with the structures and the rules. With
Yeah.
keto, right? Doing keto, you got the structure, the restriction. You know that environment. You're familiar with having to suppress things to survive in that environment. And I think there's a pattern here. I was going to ask, where did you learn that? But I think we know where you learned that, which was growing up. You had to learn at a young age, you have to suppress something within you in order to pass the rules. And that was, I suspect, a skill you learned, an adaptation. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Wow. Um, I hadn't thought about that before. But yeah, I can see how that would be, like you said, familiar to me. The restriction, the suppression is, yeah, familiar, something that I learned.
Yeah, because that's a game you know how to play, right? You've
Yeah.
played this
Yeah.
game many times. There's clear rules for everyone to see. This is the game. We got to play it. Damn these emotions that I have inside of me. Damn my feelings. I don't care about those. We could stuff that into a box. We could stuff that into a trash can and just stick that into the corner. But eventually that trash can starts to overflow. Then, oh hell.
Yeah.
Hell breaks loose, right? Do you resonate with that?
I do.
Can you tell me about a time where, or can you help me understand how that resonates with you?
I mean, it just sounds like a lot of things, you know. Sometimes people, well, me, okay, had to like repress some of my own like emotions in the way that I was feeling so as not to, I guess, upset the balance in the household, you know? And I can see how potentially like, well, and then that never ends up great, right? Because when you keep squashing emotions and you just like repress them, eventually they're, like you said, they're just going to come out, and it's going to be even more unpleasant because, like you said, it's overflowing, and then you get like chastised even more for like exploding with your emotions. And then, yeah, go ahead.
No, please. This is actually, I should interrupt. Keep going.
Okay, I was going to say, comparing that to like eating, I mean, everyone tells you, don't suppress your emotions, you should feel your feelings, like uh and it makes sense, but you don't really think about that in regards to like eating, I suppose. I think I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
But like, it's okay. But yeah, I think that's just what I was going to say, is like, if you restrict, why wouldn't you assume that eventually it's going to come out and like, overflow, because you're not really like listening to yourself. You're not feeling your feelings. You're not feeling your hunger. You're just trying to control it.
So let me ask you, you mentioned repressing feelings, and do you repress when you're eating?
Repress.
Are you
What?
repressing anything?
When I'm
So it's kind of a weird question. What I'm hypothesizing, I'm trying to see, is there some sort of connection, anything come to your mind? Because again, I could be completely wrong and just like, oh, I'm planting ideas in your head. But I'm wondering, is like, you grew up in a household where you had to repress, right? Your feelings. I'm wondering if with these strict diets, doing keto, are you repressing anything? Do you feel that feeling of repression there?
I don't know. I mean, nothing comes to mind when I think of that.
If nothing comes to mind, then let's just not worry about it, because I could be just completely off the mark. But something you said earlier was the chastising. That's something I want to explore too. You were talking about your eating, and then you feel chastised. You're breaking the rules. Who's chastising you?
I guess the real answer is me, right? Mm-hmm. Me in my head.
When did you learn to start feeling like that? Or when did you start feeling chastised in general?
Young. Yeah, like 6 or 7.
Can you tell me more about that?
Well, I think the growing up in the household with all the rules, like, if you didn't do something the right way, like, both my parents, my biological father and my mother, were very like particular, like things had to be done a certain way. And it was just, yeah. you could get chastised for anything. You could get like reprimanded for putting dishes in the dishwasher incorrectly, you know.
What would they say to you?
I don't, okay, it wasn't the words as much as it was their tone. The tone gets very like harsh and like, you know, don't do that, don't put that in there like that, you know, you should know better, and like stuff like that.
How did that make you feel
like,
with that tone?
Small. Yeah, like obviously in trouble, ashamed.
Mm-hmm. I think you're very good at identifying your emotions, by the way. You do a really good job.
Thank you.
Of
that is
labeling.
years of practice.
That's awesome. Have you been to therapy before, by the way? Which, by the way, this is of course not therapy. So I'm
yes, I have been.
So I wonder those emotions of feeling small, guilt, and shame. Are those the same emotions that pop up with how you feel with regaining the weight? How you feel with the food when you feel out of control?
Yeah.
Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, I think so. Well, there's definitely the shame is there. The shame is, you know, I'm not the shape that I should be. I'm not the right fitness, you know. And then I didn't think about the small thing, but it's true. I feel like I even walk differently being overweight, I guess. When I was like at that 127 mark, like, you know, you walk with your chest up and your shoulders squared because you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I feel like I hunch over a lot.
So I hypothesize there's a lot of the thought generation, the chastising, the guilt trips, the structures. You learned a lot of that at a young age to where you learn that when you screw up, there's the voice there, that tone of the parents. And if your parents aren't there, damn it, there's going to be a voice in your head that's going to be there to have that tone with you of you screwed up and making you feel bad that the dishes don't go this way and you shouldn't regain the weight, or this is how you're supposed to look with fitness, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And those emotions and those feelings, I think, are gonna they're gonna respawn as like fresh emotional mobs there to take you back to where you were growing up. And then even though the formula works, the formula of negative emotions, using that as fuel to push ourselves to achieve fitness goals or just achieve anything in life. Because we see this all the time with people, and I see this in the fitness space, where some of the best weight loss stories was because the person trying to lose the weight, they beat themselves up and make themselves, they feel like a piece of shit. And they just use that in negative fuel to push themselves to push really hard, which, I mean, if that works for some people, I'm not trying to shame that or anything like that. But my concern is that it doesn't always last. And then a lot of people can burn out from that and they feel even worse afterward. And then it ends up with like cycles of self-hatred and like yo-yoing ups and downs. And that just sounds like such a heavy, exhausting load to go through.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think it is. It reminds me of something that we talked about in your Discord too, about how, oh gosh, the cycles of heaviness, and how, I was saying that I didn't feel like I was mentally strong enough to diet again, because it felt like it took so much energy just to try and like lose the weight, that any outside stressor, like I couldn't have any outside stress because I needed to focus solely on cutting my calories, looking at my macros, and making sure I was working out every day.
Can you tell me more about the energy required to get started? Because that was something you mentioned just now. I want to hear more about that.
The energy required to get started on dieting.
Yeah.
It, for me, I needed like kind of like a clean slate. And I, you know, had put in like the mental work to do all the research to figure out, okay, if I'm going to start on keto, what does that require? I bought like a book. I read the book, and it was like telling you like this is how keto works and yada yada. And then I came up with meal plans and had to like, meal prep. I would make big batches of food and like sort it and freeze some and put some in the fridge, and make sure that that was all set like every Sunday. But like Sunday I spent almost the entire day in the kitchen making all this food. Like that's physically exhausting, is making all the food just to prep for the next week, which Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday I was going to do my weight workouts, and then in between I would do walking or running, jogging. And so like Monday through Friday, I was physically exhausted from working out, mentally exhausted from going to work, exhausting my creative energy. And then on the weekends, like Saturday, maybe I could spend it with friends, but Sunday I had to go back into the kitchen and prep for the rest of the week. And it's just like, it felt like nothing else could happen,
Yeah. There's no space for anything else. And that does sound exhausting.
Yeah.
So Zelda, I wonder, do you feel like you have to try extra hard to make up for lost time?
Yeah. Well, do I feel like I have to?
Or there's something
Maybe.
about you, like there's. Let me change the question. Because maybe I'm being too specific. Do you feel like you have to try extra hard for you in particular?
Yeah. I mean, so my friends say this about me a lot, that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to like put everything I have into it. And like everything I do, I have to like 100% for sure.
Can you tell me about other times in life that you had to give it 100%?
Yeah, I would do that in like school, like had to make A's. And if I didn't make A's, like, oh, that felt real bad.
What was bad about it?
When because it wasn't, I was going to say it wasn't perfect.
Why are you laughing?
Just thinking about this, because I haven't ever like thought about it before, and maybe how ridiculous it sounds, that I think that everything needs to be done to perfection.
Where did you learn that it needs to be done to perfection?
I think from my parents, because there's a right way to do everything growing up. So, I mean, so it's like a gift. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like a gift and a curse, because it's a gift in that, like, if I do something like for my job, I draw, and so I'm gonna make sure that is gonna be like the best piece of art I've created for this purpose, and it's good because work enjoys that. But it's a curse too, because I can't just like make a crappy drawing, like I won't let myself, or I don't want to.
What would happen if you made a crappy drawing?
Well, I don't think I would lose my job.
Well, I mean, but for you.
Okay.
Would you be okay with a crappy drawing?
I probably wouldn't show it off. I'd probably just put it in the, trash bin on my computer, or I don't know.
What I'm wondering is, again, I'm just probing. I could be completely off, but do you get any sense of if it's not your best work, you chastise yourself and you just get the feelings of shame or anything like that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, if it doesn't, okay. So if we're talking about art, yeah, if it doesn't look good, if I draw an arm and it doesn't look correct in perspective, then it's garbage. I can't believe I did that, and like I don't know how to fix it, or I have to fix it, or
See, I think what I was looking for, I was wondering if there were negative emotions there. And I think I heard it right when you said, I can't, what was it you said? I can't believe I did that. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I can't believe I did
so,
that.
Yeah.
That sounds to me like it's coming from a place of negative emotions. What do you think?
Yeah. Negative emotions. What do you mean? Explain.
Like you're beating yourself up. Like, I can't believe I did that. Someone else could have done it. That's a normal thing. That's like, good artists could do that, but I can't believe that I did that. Does that resonate?
Yeah. Yeah. And like wishing, I was better or like those other artists,
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to probe too much because I think we've already made some good progress on identifying some connections with how you feel with the eating and the dieting and regaining the weight, and how you feel with being chastised by your parents. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we've made progress.
All right, good. So I wanted to pivot to something else and just ask you more about the book Intuitive Eating. So now we can kind of like come up for some air and breathe some more fun academic discussion type stuff, like the Intuitive Eating book. Can you tell us about the book and what some of your takeaways are?
Yeah, so I'm only at chapter like 6, maybe 5 or 6. But what I've learned so far is that essentially there's like, it's called like diet cycling, I guess. And that diets just, well, according to this book, diets don't work because they tend to, you put yourself in a very restrictive mode. And then once that restriction is over, people bounce back and sometimes even gain more weight than they had before they started dieting. And the book basically wants you to get back in touch with your body, because they were saying that sometimes dieting can separate the body and the mind. So, your mind is telling you like when to eat, but you're not listening to what your body is saying. So the goal is to listen to your body, and when you're hungry, you eat, and when you're full, you stop. Essentially like that, and trying to get you to like be more in tune with this in your body so that you don't binge eat. And like I don't know, I don't really know what the end goal would be for me, because like I still want to lose weight, I want to feel fit and feel good, but I don't know, I'm kind of scared to like let myself eat. And that was the other thing, is like, just allow yourself to eat whatever you want when you want it. So like if I'm hungry, what am I craving? If I'm craving Pop-Tarts, eat a Pop-Tart. But like, on the diet, Pop-Tarts are bad. But essentially just what intuitive eating wants to get to, I guess, is that if you are in touch with your own hunger and satiation cues, that you will eventually eat the right foods for you. That you won't just like eat Pop-Tarts all the time, but that you will crave salads, and you'll crave chicken, and you'll crave maybe a cookie. But it's just because your body is asking for those certain nutrients.
Yeah. I really like the concept of intuitive eating, because even though I talk often about tracking and how really like the best place I think for almost any beginner to start is to start tracking, to look at your food, to get the quantity and, you know, get some numbers behind it. Because I agree also with the concept that one thing they touch on is about good food versus bad food. I rarely label food as good or bad. I usually try to give some sort of context to it, where it's like calorie dense. And because I want to lose weight, calorie dense would be a bad choice in terms of it's not very helpful or productive. In terms of just the raw emotion of good or bad, because then that's too black and white. And very rarely I think food is that black and white. And so at the same time, you brought up a really good point, which is you want to lose weight, yet at the same time, you want to take the training wheels off and intuitively eat, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like a tough spot to be in. What are your thoughts about how to navigate that space?
I think that's why I'm here, because I don't.
That's fine. I just wanted to see if you had a sense for it. And I don't want to make you squirm or anything like that. I want to make you squirm enough. So I think at the end of the day, if you want to lose weight, right, there's a lot of good health reasons to lose weight, right? That this is just scientifically true. Like we know this. It is good to quote unquote be in shape, which is when I say be in shape, I mean on the BMI chart, you're not severely underweight, you're not severely overweight, you're somewhere in the middle-ish range. And I say middle-ish because it's actually quite broad. I prefer body fat percentages more, which is really just for most guys, broad strokes like 8 to 18% body fat. For most women, like 15 to 25% body fat. Again, if you go a few percent outside that range, I don't really care. But just general broad strokes of, okay, let's try to get somewhere in this zone for optimal health. And we need to have a plan that does not lead us to failure and a cycle of negative emotions. Because the negative emotions is like a what's a good analogy for this? Do you ever play Magic the Gathering? No, by any chance? Of course, only nerds play that game. Why would I even bring that up? I definitely don't play Magic. I'm
I'm a nerd.
What? That's crazy. Why did I say that? But you know how like there's certain builds in certain games, they have builds where you can do extra damage, but you do damage to yourself. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
oh yeah.
Wait, in Overwatch, you play Overwatch, right? Wasn't there someone who plays like that? There has to be, right?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody that does damage to themselves anymore.
Okay, but I think, I mean, I'm flailing for an example here, but it's like the negative emotions.
Well, but Pokemon, I play Pokemon, so Pokemon have that ability where like.
Which ones?
There's like, I don't think it's headbutt, but it's like a similar move where the Pokemon will go and like tackle the other one, but there's like a recoil to it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're talking about?
Recoil,
and it ends up damaging them.
Is it struggle? Which Pokemon does that? Takedown?
Rock type? My partner knows more about. Yeah. I think it's takedown.
Okay. Struggle, double edge, takedown. That's what people in chat are saying. I'm breaking the rules of reading chat, but that's kind of the same thing. Like it's like negative emotional fuel is like a self-sacrificial thing where you can get the job done at the cost of dealing damage to yourself.
Yeah.
And eventually you gotta deal with the damage afterward. And oh boy, that damage can last sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think with intuitive eating, one of the best takeaways from it is to try to get to a place where you're not dealing damage to yourself in order to achieve your goals, to minimize the long-lasting destruction and also the energy, because damn, is it freeing. If you can get to a place where you decouple yourself from the goal. Let me explain that. One issue a lot of people have with dieting, or really just any goal in life, is they attach their identity and self-worth to that goal and that function. That sounds like it resonates with you. Can you Tell me what you're thinking.
Oh, yeah. Really trying not to cry, Tom.
Can you walk me through what you're feeling?
Yeah. I think that the self-worth thing is hitting hard.
It's okay. We can sit with it. If you want, we can steer out of here. But I think it might be important to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we talk about this?
Yeah, we could talk about it.
Is it okay to cry?
Yes, it's okay to cry.
You might get me too. I'm starting to actually get a little misty-eyed here.
It's okay to cry, but is it okay to cry on stream?
Of course. Can you tell me about what your understanding of that is? The self-worth in your case, like you're tying it to your identity.
Yeah, I think that I've never really had a good sense of self-worth. That I've never really believed in myself, like, fully, you know?
When did you start learning to not believe in yourself?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, early. And maybe that just comes from growing up and having other people kind of tell me how I should feel and who I should be, you know?
Who do they tell you you should be, and who do they tell you, or how do they tell you should feel?
I should be an upstanding member of society. I should be straight and ladylike and, you know, don't have a potty mouth. Women don't have potty mouths. And yeah, I should get a job with lots of money. Money is everything. And I should be thin, right? Yeah.
When we think about those things, those tags of what you should be, how do you feel?
Like I'm none of it.
Feeling like I'm none of it is not a feeling.
When I think of those tags of who I should be, like my feeling is just like, it's not for me. Like that's cute, but wrong.
Can I think for a second?
Yes. Take your time.
I need some coffee for a second. I need to think about this a little bit longer.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm just going to think out loud, so I haven't really put my thoughts together on this. Your identity and self-worth. I want to explore that more because I think I want to understand that connection more with your identity and self-worth. You learned it at a young age. You were told that you should be ladylike. You should be straight. You should have you should not have a potty mouth. You should be thin. You have all these shoulds. And you've learned at a young age to basically just not have self-worth.
Yeah.
Do you have self-worth now?
I think I'm slowly working on it. That, yeah. I think that I do value myself. I just don't know how to talk to myself about it. I don't know how to tell myself, you know?
Let me ask you this. Let's frame it like this. You have a friend, a little girl or a little sister, whichever you prefer, who is 6 years old, 8 years old. She thinks she's not following the rules. She's being told by her parents that she's not ladylike enough, that she should be straight, and she's not sure. And she breaks the rules if she feels small, and she's not good enough, if she's getting chastised. What would you say to that girl?
Yo, do you want to come live with me? Because it sounds like you're in a pretty crappy environment. Yeah. And it doesn't have to define you.
What should define her?
Hmm.
And if you're not sure, we can pivot.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What would you say to her to encourage her?
Don't forget to listen to yourself, maybe. With all of these things coming at you, don't forget that you're you and you're allowed to like the things that you like and do the things that you want to do.
Who are you, Zelda? Are you Zelda or are you Sheik? No. But seriously, on a serious note, who are you?
What do you mean?
Whatever comes to mind.
Who am I? Who is Zelda? Zelda is a kind-hearted person who's very artistic. She loves making people laugh and really wants to do her best to be a good person.
We talked about self-love and self-worth, how to encourage yourself. I think that might be one of the steps forward.
Yeah.
Is to talk to yourself like you're having compassion for your best friend or the little girl who needed you back then. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think that would be a great first step, because even just saying like nice things about me, it's like that felt hard to do.
Yeah. It can be really hard to do, especially when you have that thought loop generator in there.
Yeah.
In the back of your mind.
That negative self-talk.
Yep. And one thing that I've learned from, Dr. K, because I love his streams, love his content, is how he explains it as, you ever play the game Gauntlet back in the day?
What was Gauntlet?
Gauntlet is this old game that boomers like me have played back when I was younger.
I played a game on the 64 called Gauntlet Legends. Is that the same?
Yeah. You know how like Gauntlet, basically in Gauntlet is always like you have mobs and mobs and mobs to fight through, but really the goal is you got to go destroy the portals that are generating all the mobs, right?
Right.
Because it's like you fight like hell until you finally get to the portal. That's really the boss. You gotta that's the real problem. Because if you just sit in the corner and you just stand there fighting the mobs, it's you're never gonna win. Because you just cannot win if you just stand there. But you gotta assess the right target. And the right target is you have to notice the thought generator of where these thoughts come from, these negative emotions and the negative self-talk. Did it come from your parents when they were chastising you, when they're reprimanding you when you were younger? Right? Where do you put these rules and structure on yourself? Is it because you grew up in a family with so much rules and structures that this is the game you know how to play, and that's the only game you were taught and you know how to play? Just play by the rules, don't get caught. And once the rules are gone, then like hell yeah, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want now, right? So those are the types of rules. Those are the types of identifying and noticing these patterns is one of the best ways to defeat these loop patterns. It's just like stare it down in the eye and just stare it down until it's destroyed. That's like one of the best weapons. And to notice that it's not a part of you, right? The self-worth and identity. I think Dr. K has a good take on this, the spirituality stuff. And that's something that's kind of, I think, unfortunately missing in today's society. And as a Christian, I'm a Christian too, and I don't preach down upon people, but if I can just apologize on behalf of Christians for making people feel down and lacking self-worth for things like gender choices, identity choices, stuff like that. Because I think that can cause, unfortunately, some lasting damage. And it causes a big drift away from spirituality when I think a lot of humans need some kind of spirituality. I won't touch on it too much today here, but this is something like, if you want to, I'm happy to give you my take on spirituality another time. And we can always do it off stream too. But and ultimately, so noticing the behavior, the pattern, and talking to yourself like you're a friend or a little sister. Because sometimes when we've learned these patterns, it's so difficult to talk to ourselves like we know we deserve, because we've learned we don't deserve it. But when you think of someone else, it's so much easier to talk to them and to put them up rather than ourselves. So I think this combo is going to be huge for you to start making steps towards intuitive eating and improving your relationship with food. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I can see how, that could help. Just like having the self-worth and would help not obsess so much over the way I should look, I guess.
Yeah. So one more thing I wanted to mention was detaching yourself from the outcome. This is something that when I heard Dr. K, from Healthy Gamer GG, when he mentioned this before to me the first time, I did not understand it. He said, you cannot lose weight. That is not an action or a verb that you can take. And I didn't quite understand, like, what are you talking about, bro? Of course I can lose weight. I do this all the time. Like, it's very simple. Yeah. You just reduce calories and you increase activity, blah, blah, blah. And then he pointed out that those are the actions that you can take. You can reduce your food. You could change what your food choices are. You could choose to do cardio or go to the gym, lift weights, whatever. Those are actions you can actually take. But you cannot take the action of lose weight. That's an abstract goal. And abstract goals, detaching yourself from that to where it's not you, it's not a part of your identity and your self-worth. It's liberating to surrender, right? That's part of the whole intuitive eating aspect of this, which is surrendering that you're not entitled to the outcome. You're only entitled to the actions that you take, which, yes, on a very practical aspect, we can be intelligent about our planning and make good choices about food. I'm not saying don't do that. We could, make good plans to exercise, workout, all that stuff. What I'm saying is we can detach ourselves that this goal, I am not entitled to the goal of losing weight. And when you detach yourself from that, it can be liberating that it's not a part of your identity or your self-worth. And then you're free to make mistakes because it's not you, right? Yeah. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. Because when you take away that burden of, I need to have this outcome, I am trying to do XYZ, then you feel like you failed XYZ. When in reality, you actually did do the actions correctly for the most part, right? Yeah. You did take the actions of planning your food. You did take the actions of, I'm going to go exercise. But the outcome didn't come. And so that's kind of that mindset shift that I think is an important aspect of that. I've been talking a lot, so I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get it, right? Because, you know, if someone says, you know, yeah, lose weight, like, how are you going to just do it? But working, like, yeah, being active, you know, changing your diet, that kind of thing are actions you can take. Yeah. I guess.
What's that?
I don't know.
What is that? Tell me.
What's going through my head is like, you know, I want rules again. So I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, what do I do now? Like, what's my next step?
So, the rules. This is a dangerous game because that's familiar territory for you, right? That's familiar territory where, like, you hear stories of people who get with abusive partners and they continue to go through a series of always getting with an abusive partner because they learned at a young age that that's familiar territory to get abused, and that's the game they know how to play, right? And so the game with the rules is the game you know how to play. I'm not saying you shouldn't have rules. I'm not saying that at all, because you can absolutely be successful with strict rules and structure. It's just we have to do some basic analysis here of, is this working for me? Is it generating a lot of damage? Am I doing a Pokemon tackle and I'm doing self-destructive damage unnecessarily? Like, really, I should have done Pikachu Thunderbolt or something like that, which does that deal the damage? I actually don't know. My analogy is falling apart because I'm probably gonna get called out. Someone on the internet is gonna be like, "Oh my god, you don't know that Pikachu does damage to himself at Thunderbolt." Okay, so the point is, structure and rules can work for you. It absolutely can. It's just you have to be okay with we got to watch for chastising yourself. That's the real problem, is just the negative collateral damage. If you can play by the game of having rules, there's two aspects to that. One is the negative emotions. Can we separate this? And one of the ways to do that is separating the outcome, detaching it from your identity, right? That's one aspect. The second aspect is, what do you do when there are no rules, right? Once the keto challenge is over, what do you do then? Because on a very practical note, when people have too much structure, like you said from the intuitive eating book, when you have too much structure, what do the people do then? Which is why I really so my approach, so to tie this all back to the beginning, one of the first things I wanted to mention right off the bat was talking about the mental energy for calculating your macros, because you mentioned that's a lot of mental energy for that. And you also mentioned you wanted to intuitively eat and be able to choose for yourself. I think tracking is one of the best ways for people to start, simply because you start there. Treat it like training wheels. And eventually, most people can take the training wheels off and then intuitively eat and kind of control. And what that looks like for each person is going to be different. So I'll speak from my own experience, and I'm not saying people should mimic this or copy it exactly because it might look a bit different. But I've been at this enough times I don't need to track for when I'm bulking or cutting. Sometimes I'll take a page from Eric Helms, who also Eric Helms, bodybuilder, scientist. He talks about intuitive eating as well. I'll take a page from him in that he talks about how occasionally we should audit ourselves. And I occasionally will audit myself if I'm plateauing. So if I'm not losing weight, or when I'm cutting, if I'm not losing weight and I'm plateauing for a few weeks, I will take an audit. and like seriously sit down and start looking at everything I'm eating. I start tracking again. Like, oops, okay, I was quite off the mark. Or same thing with bulking. If I'm struggling to gain weight and I'm like missing the mark and I think I'm eating a lot, but I'm not, and then I'll start auditing and tracking and checking that. So the occasional self-test. But when we do that, we have to make sure that in our head, we're not fueling this with a negative emotion of oh man, what a POS I am. I failed again. I have to look at me having to, I couldn't do it. You see, like I'm getting chastising myself again. You see, like I do need the structure. And so, when I personally am failing, I don't beat myself up. I'm like, oops, that sucks. Oh, well, okay, I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna recalibrate. So I rarely have the feelings of failure because even though people might look at me like, oh man, he's so perfect. He's like doing everything right all the time. I'm not. I most definitely take extended cheat days, let's say. Right now I'm on like extended cheat day vacation mode right now because of some special vacation circumstances, and so I am most definitely not eating and like cutting calories, and that's okay because I know at the end it's gonna be okay. I am detached from the outcome, and I do have a very much spiritual belief in everything's gonna work out. It's going to work out, and I can back that up with I feel confident that I'm going to be heading in the right direction. I'll recalibrate later, and I know what the plan is. So, that is, I think, an approach for intuitive eating, and it can reduce the mental energy for macros and calories. Is to start taking the training wheels off and see how you're doing with a simple check like the scale. Now, the scale in itself could also be a source of stress. So I want to ask you, how do you feel about something like that?
How do I feel about checking the scale?
Yeah, as like a way to see if you're generally on track or not.
I think, I mean, like I'm used to it, but I think that I would steer away from it for now.
Okay. And that's okay too. As long as there's some sort of plan to have an audit in there. And at the same time, one thing to keep in mind, we don't have to go into this today, is to think about why do you want to steer away from the scale? What's the emotion there? And I'm just going to hypothesize. Do you have something in mind already?
Oh yeah. Well, for me, because when I did lose that 20 pounds, I was diligently tracking my calories and my macros. I had the MyFitnessPal app and was tracking everything every day. Same with the scale. I'd weigh myself every morning. And I just, for me right now, back then it became a little obsessive, and there's a lot of like anxiety and worry associated with it. So I'm wondering if my next step should be just to kind of like take a break from it. Let myself, do the intuitive eating, just like let myself be and breathe for a second before I get back on to tracking so that it doesn't become obsession again.
Right. Completely understandable. One thing to understand as well is if I understand needing to take a break. Eventually, though, if the negative feelings and emotions keep coming up, we should explore this either like together or by yourself. It kind of like how we were exploring your feelings with the chastising and feeling, basically the chastising feelings. We're exploring that. You should explore that with the weight as well in the scale, because we do need, if your end goal is to lose the weight, we should have some sort of tracking or checking somewhere. Okay. We have to know if we're actually hitting our goals, and whether that's, and there's a lot of practical ways around this, but one of the issues I think is, one mistake is, and I'm not saying you're doing this, by the way, I'm just gonna hypothetically, some people will be like, okay, the scale is a source of stress, so I'm never gonna use the scale. And I will never use the scale the rest of my life because I'm never opening that door. I am never opening that door, looking at the skeletons in that closet again. And I don't think that's a healthy solution either, because we have to explore why are there skeletons in the closet with the scale. Okay, we don't have to explore right now. That's something to explore eventually. If something that's a very benign tracking tool, because like the scale doesn't tell you, Zelda, like you failed again. Zelda, your self-worth is not there. The scale doesn't say that. We put that worth on the scale.
We do.
And we generate the voices in our heads and the thoughts in our head. And it feels so real. So there's a balance to be had there. And I'll give some practical tips too to help with scale stress. So I'm just going to talk at you some more with practical tips, which is, hey, you know what? I get scale stress too sometimes when I'm cutting. And it hits me too. Like when I see the number shoot up, when I'm trying to lose weight, it shoots up like 2 or 3 pounds. I am completely there with a lot of people where the first reaction is an immediate physical, emotional, visceral reaction that you cannot control. It's just going to hit you for like a quarter second, a half second of like, what the hell? What have I done? You know, the Anakin quote right after he turns to the dark side. What have I done? And so that immediately goes through my mind. But then I think about it carefully, like, oh, okay, wait, actually, like, you know what? I had a fast food burrito yesterday, or pizza, super salty, a lot of calories. I drank tons of water. I had a cheat day yesterday. You know what? This actually makes sense. And then sure enough, I go back to my normal dieting habits, and then we're back down to where we were after a day or two. So scale stress is real. And I recommend for most people to consider like a moving average. So for apps, there is 2 good apps I recommend. One is Libra. Another one is Lose It. So if you're on iOS, I think you have to use Lose It. If you're on Android, then Libra is the one to use. And the way those work is they just tell you the moving average number. You weigh yourself daily. Don't think about that number. Just punch it in to the app. It'll tell you the moving average of the last 7 days or 30 days or whatever you set it to. And then that's really the key number to look at. Because the day-to-day fluctuations are huge, especially for females. And Zelda, if I may ask, how are your menstrual cycles?
They're regular.
Like, so like roughly every, 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every 28 days.
Do you notice any particular bloating or, with your cycle? Or any regular cycles like that? So for women who have regular cycles, and they know they definitely feel more bloated, or like the water weight is coming on, or they're snacking and craving a little bit more. It might also be a good idea to, instead of doing a 7-day moving average, do a 30-day moving average. Okay. A 30-day moving average, because week to week, right, there's going to be massive hormonal fluctuations and water weight fluctuations. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a fair comparison to do what does my week 1, I just finished my period, week 1, my body weight versus week 3 or week 4 when I'm PMSing and water retention is going up and my hormones are shifting, and that can lead easily to just a complete shift in water weight, yet you have done nothing different with your food. And so week 1 of month 1 versus week 1 of month 2 is a way more fair comparison. Or week 3 of month 1 versus week 3 of month 2 is a way more fair comparison. So to help alleviate some of this mental stress, try a 30-day moving average or a bigger average. And when you look at that number on the scale, that number doesn't matter. The number that matters is the moving average. Is that generally staying the same or going down, right? So that's one of my practical tips for all that. Because I think we've kind of like, we're done with like the emotional discussion, all that stuff. I think we made some, we had some great discussions there, and I'm just going to talk at you with a lot of practical tips. Okay. So I think all of that stuff will help with the mental battle, help reduce how much stamina you need to fight the day-to-day battle. Because I'm not going to lie, it's not like when I'm cutting, I feel like I'm at a pretty good mental place, but dude, it still takes mental energy, right? But it still takes effort. And the goal is to basically reduce the debuffs on you that makes it so much harder to fight this fight, so that you have more stamina to fight the fight. Like let's try to put this on as easy mode as possible, because I'm a filthy casual and I like easy mode. And so I think it's fine to try to fight, the dieting aspect on easy mode. The other thing I was gonna say is, on top of the intuitive eating book that you're reading, I think another good resource is Stefan Guyenet. It's so hard to spell his name. I'm going to type it out in chat. It's Stefan, Stephan, Guyenet, Guyenet. He is an obesity researcher. I really like his take on the palatability of food and the resource cost associated with the food. Basically, pointing to hunter-gatherer societies, how we talk about there always has to be the resource cost of energy to the energy that they expend to go get the food cannot exceed what the energy is they get out of that food. Basically, if they're burning too much energy to go hunt an animal or to go forage for food and to get back to their home, it's a net loss. They're going to starve to death and die, right? And so we see that a lot with our own food choices, where my favorite what's one of your favorite junk foods?
Junk foods?
Yeah.
Oreos.
There we go. So Oreos. Pre-pandemic, did you have did you work in an office?
Yes.
Okay, so in the office, imagine this. Let's take two extreme examples to illustrate the resource cost. Oreos. Imagine that from your desk, from your desk to go to the bathroom, you would have to walk through the break room, and there in the break room it's a Friday, and they put out a big old platter of Oreos, and it's free. No one's there to see it. And every time you walk to the bathroom, it's there staring at you in the face. And man, that's so tempting. It's zero cost. It's free. It's not out of your way. And no one's there to like judge you for taking it. And you know what? They're going to throw it away, right? They're going to throw it away at the end of the day. Why not take some? Why not take 10? And so that happens to me with donuts too, man. Donuts is my go-to. But let's take an opposite extreme. Let's just say for you to get an Oreo, you would have to drive an hour in traffic to get to the store that sells Oreos marked up for like $20 for a bag of Oreos, and you have to wait in line. That is such a high resource cost. It is such a strong deterrent.
Gotcha.
We're not going to do it. Same for me with donuts. Like if there's really, really tasty donuts, but I had to drive an hour away to have this crappy parking lot, and I'd spend 10 minutes trying to find parking and then go hike uphill to go wait in line another 30 minutes to go buy $10 donuts. I'm not doing it. I love donuts, but I'm not doing that. So that resource cost is something Stefan Guillenet really illustrates in how that can help us make intuitive eating a little bit easier. So to tie this back to your question about intuitive eating, some of his practical tips is literally like as simple as getting the junk food out of the house. Because if it's literally out of your house, it's going to have a higher resource cost associated with it to go get that food. Because now instead of just reaching for the pantry, you have to drive to the store. Now, some people might still do that, but the point is we're trying to increase the barrier of effort. Same thing if you live with roommates or you still want to have some junk food, you don't want to toss it out, fine. At least rearrange things such that in the refrigerator, in the pantry, it takes the most effort to reach for the junk food, and the fresh, healthy food, whatever that is for you, it requires the least effort. So it is as simple as positioning fruits and vegetables in front in the refrigerator and the junk or cake or whatever in the back. And same with the pantry. And I will tell you, as silly as this sounds, it works for me because when I'm in that mindless mode of I am hungry, I want to snack on something, I will literally grab what's the first thing in front of me. It is so much easier, or it's so much easier to stick to avoiding calorie-dense snacks if they're literally hard to reach. You know what I mean? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, no, we actually, me and my partner did that recently because we were still trying to like stick to a healthy eating plan, but we really wanted Oreos. We bought the Halloween Oreos is what happened because we really wanted Oreos, but we put them up above some counter space. So in order to reach them, we had to get out the step stool just to get to them.
There you go.
So if we wanted Oreos, we had to work for it.
Short people advantage right there. Tall people disadvantage.
Well, I have to use a step stool for everything.
Because for me, like I can just reach, right? I have to, my wife Helen, she's like 5'3", and I have to grab stuff for her. But it's funny because it actually works to her advantage also if I put stuff out of reach for her because I'm helping her. That's what I tell myself anyway. So
nice. Anyway,
so we talked about a lot. Zelda, do you have any questions about anything? Is there anything you want to comment on?
Yeah. So, well, at least what I've been thinking about recently, because like I understand doing the 30-day moving average and, food resourcing and all that stuff. But I'm wondering if maybe, what do you think of me taking the next 2 to 3 months to just kind of like soft reset, I guess, and like no rules, no weighing, no counting calories, and just sort of like trying to listen to my body when I'm hungry, when I'm not, and just, you know, I guess trying to go back so that if I do restrict, I won't binge again. Like that's what I want to try to teach myself, how to eat appropriately so that dieting, cutting calories and then stopping cutting calories isn't going to send me into, this again, to gaining back all the weight that I lost.
I think a lot of that battle is going to be not so much in the soft reset, but more so in you identifying those thought loop patterns with the cycles of the shame, going back to when you're the little girl being chastised by your parents, and in your head, that voice chastising you. I think that's going to be a huge difference right there. So that being said, some other practical tips about the soft reset. I think it makes complete sense that sometimes we need a break to just rebuild our mental health stamina. The downside is there should be some sort of fail-safe somewhere to prevent long-lasting damage. What I mean is, it's not a big deal if you, like in these next 2 or 3 months, if you put on 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. That's not that big of a deal because you can lose that later on. It is a big deal if you put on 100 pounds because medically speaking, there is some longer lasting damage, and we're kind of making the uphill slope that we're going to go on even steeper. So we got to find a balance to where we have some sort of fail-safe. But it's tricky, right? Because we want to give you a mental health reset, but we also don't want to completely like create a lot more damage. I'm hearing some donations actually for the Healthy Gamer Fund. Thank you for that. My alerts are scuffed right now because we're doing a Healthy Gamer fundraiser for mental health stuff. I'll talk more about that after the interview's over. But thank you for the donations. And I was gonna say, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about finding that balance?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Is that putting a fail safe so that I don't just like go crazy. But I think part of learning intuitive eating is that it's not to just let yourself go crazy, and it's learning to trust yourself. And I think that I do need to build that back up. So maybe just trust myself that I'm not gonna go and binge and gain 50 pounds in 3 months, like trust that if I listen to myself and I eat when I'm hungry, I'm not gonna like blow up,
Yeah.
At least that's my thought. That's my goal.
Yes. Ultimately, I think that is a good goal. I'm trying to navigate the space of if and how there should be some sort of self-checking of, okay, this is not working. Okay. Let's pump the brakes. And I don't have a good answer for that. This is something that maybe you're going to have to reflect on in terms of how do we know that this is starting to not work and we're starting to lose control again? I don't know if that's going to be just noticing bad patterns and the negative self-talk starting again. I don't know if that's going to be just trying out some sort of like weigh yourself once a month type of thing and give yourself an acceptable goal of like, as long as I'm within 20% of my original body weight, like I did not gain more than 20%, that's acceptable as not a failure, right? Because one of the goals is to try to detach yourself from the outcome of labeling yourself as a failure of like pass, fail, and all that stuff. And so this is kind of counterintuitive to that because we are like labeling this as failure, but we're creating such a large buffer zone that that there's so much wiggle room here that you have enough grace to be kind to yourself. That, you gain 5% and that's okay. You gain 10%, that's okay. You can deal with that. Let's just not gain 50%, something along those lines. Yeah. What that looks like for you, I'm not sure. I'm kind of just talking out loud here and just brainstorming, and I don't know if any of these would really work, but you're gonna have to think about it a little bit. Or maybe a size, like clothing size change, right? Like I cannot allow myself to increase my size by 3 or 4 sizes, something like that. Because if you gain 50% of your body weight, you would most likely have to clothes shop. And then that could be the fail safe. I don't know. Again, the really important part here is the negative self-talk. We've got to identify it as it happens to kind of break the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, working on the mental health first. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But, I do like that fail-safe potential is just like, don't go up in a pant size or something.
Yeah. Well, maybe a pant size is too strict still. Like, we got to like really give you a buffer. Like 3 pant sizes. Okay, because like let's give yourself plenty of wiggle room, because at the end of the day, if someone gains 10 or 20% of their body weight, that's really not that hard to undo. But if someone doubles their body weight, that's actually pretty big in terms of there's going to be long lasting damage to deal with, and we don't want to do that, right? Like someone who Dr. K has mentioned this before, that for antidepressants, he doesn't always want to put people on antidepressants. But if someone like needs to perform because they have to provide for their family and they're going to lose their job because depression is that bad, he's going to give them antidepressants. He's going to help them, like, we got to get through this. But let's also try to address the long-term solution. And so similar thing here with, we got to, let's do what we got to do to get your mental health at a better place. At the same time, we don't want to create long-lasting damage. It's going to take more time to undo. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we got to find that balance, which is tricky. There is no right or wrong answer. This is a lot of times it's going to depend on each person, and we got to find what works for us, right?
Right.
So what else? Comments, questions?
Do exercise and working out. Obviously, should keep doing that, right?
Yes.
Do I need to have like a goal? Or should I just say, you know what, Tina, you're working out. You did 3 miles today. That's awesome. Go you. Or should I be like, no, I gotta like lift weights. I gotta get to a certain strength or.
I think the real ultimate goal here is for you to be able to plan and create strategies. It's okay to intellectually think about this and rationalize out a plan, as long as it's not fueled by negative emotions of looking at yourself in the mirror and like, I hate myself, I hate how I look, and like that's the fuel that's driving these plans. And as long as if you fail the plans, you aren't falling back in the same cycles of the self-hatred, the the chastising that feels like what your parents did when you were younger, that kind of stuff. That is really the goal, because I don't like the idea of we should just like fly blind. Some people can intuitively do that. Absolutely. Some people can intuitively lift and get stronger and get big and jacked and like super strong. I'm jealous of them because they are resilient and they know their bodies. They just, you know what, today I'm gonna feel like, deadlifting 400 pounds. Let's just keep pushing. And they can do it. Not everyone can do that. I can't do it. I have to think about it and I have to strategize about it. But, and that's okay, as long as we aren't surrounded by negative emotions with it. So to answer your question very practically about should I plan things out? You should plan things out. Perhaps baby steps, perhaps not. I am not sure, but plan things out in a way that does not result in this stuff. It's not fueled by the negative emotions. So if you have to go baby steps because you need like a mental break and reset, and just set goals of like, you know what, let's just do any kind of physical activity today, the micro steps, that's okay too. If you feel like you're at a place where you can just jump straight back into pushing hard, then yeah. Like you can just go for it. If you have a plan that you did before, you liked it, you enjoyed it, and you're not gonna have this negative self-talk on it, then by all means go back into it.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I like that, and there is a workout plan that I do like. It makes me happy. Obviously not in the moment because it's very stressful, but afterwards I always feel great, and my partner is working out with me, which makes it even better. So I like doing that. It's just what's going through my mind now is I keep thinking about like what the intuitive eating book is saying versus like, it feels like there's like this weird, is it juxtaposition? Like the intuitive eating is like, yeah, be loose, be free, like just feel your feelings and feel what your body is saying. And then like in order to actually lose weight, you kind of have to like be a little more strict about it.
Right. I think
so. It's just like, yeah, where's the balance, I guess?
One of the takeaways from a lot of books and just a lot of media in general, a lot of times they'll take a position and it sounds so amplified that this is the one true way. And maybe they're saying that, maybe they're not. I actually don't know. I only know the general concepts that book outlines. And my understanding of that book is more about how to have a weight neutral relationship and kind of reset the negative emotions with it. And then to use, by freeing yourself of the negative emotions, you freed yourself from all these debuffs. And then imagine how much stronger you're going to be now when you go and you make strategies. Because like you said, there's balance, and you're gonna have to balance that, and just keep that in mind when you're reading it. That perhaps, I don't know if they mention this in the book at all, because again, I'm very ignorant about the book, but there could be, they may have subtly mentioned it in the intro that maybe this is just about a weight neutral strategy, and this is more about the emotions tied to the food as opposed to someone trying to lose weight or regain weight, stuff like that. So.
What is weight neutral?
Weight neutral is just, I can take off the training wheels and not have to restrict myself in any way, and I can eat on autopilot and not gain weight or lose weight.
Yeah.
And the next step on top of that, I would say that the next iteration of that is to autopilot and still be able to lose weight or gain weight as a controlled, like, this is something I want to do, and it's not controlling me. There's no negative emotions of it attacking me. So for example, like, I can intuitively eat weight neutral because I mean, I know how to listen to my body for all these things. So let me just give some practical stuff from like the bodybuilding side of weight neutral intuitive eating. I know that right after a cut, I'm going to be extra hungry. And if I want to be weight neutral, I have to use extra mental attention to pay attention to my hunger cues and realize that perhaps I'm not that hungry. And I use certain strategies of like, okay, I'm feeling hungry now. Let me just drink a flavored carbonated water. Like I like LaCroix, Kirkland sparkling water, 0 calories. It kind of fills you up. It kind of triggers the mechanoreceptors in the receptors in the stomach, which just tells you you're full, kind of because it puts pressure in there. And some of that pressure, one, it buys me time. And two, it lets me think a little bit longer about, okay, am I actually hungry? How hungry am I really? And I think about like, okay, how much do I need to eat in order to actually feel hungry? One of my favorite tips for just intuitively eating is to how to learn. One of my favorite ways about just how to learn any subject, how to learn any piece of knowledge, is you spend the time to use your brain muscle to predict and think about it, to like as if you're testing yourself. And then you go check the answer on the test because you'll get the answer later. And so what I mean is, a very practical tip for this is, I think for the food, how many calories, this plate of food I'm looking at, how many calories would I guess each piece contributes to it? I take the time to really think about it. And then I, like write down the answer somewhere because I'm exercising that muscle in my brain and it's going to get stronger. I'm progressively overloading that muscle. And then I check with a scale or with MyFitnessPal, something like that. And then I get the answer key and I see how close I was. There's no feelings of shame or guilt. It's just science. It's just numbers. It has nothing to do with your self-worth or identity. I'm just looking at this and guessing. And by exercising that skill, you start to get better and better at it. And then you don't need to actually check the numbers because you've kind of intuitively figured out how many calories that is. Same thing for eating. How much food do I need to eat to feel full? And so I will think about it ahead of time. Okay, like I'm cutting, I just finished cutting. So I'm going to be hungrier than usual. So I'm going to recognize I'm hungrier than usual. So I probably don't need as much. And if I just give myself some buffer zone after I'm done eating, like of 30 minutes of just like pump the brakes, 30 minutes, hang in there. And then wait, am I still hungry or can I be okay? And that's the kind of stuff that I think about. And then like, okay, yep. I think about this much chili and a baked potato will fill me up. And then I try it. And then afterward, I reflect on it. You know what? Like, that was right. That was the right amount. Or like, oh, I feel a little bit stuffed. I probably could have done a little bit less. Okay. It's just science. It's just numbers. There's no guilt. There's no shame. I I don't judge myself for being wrong. It's just like, okay, you know what? This is a science experiment. I was a little bit off. Next time we'll titrate it down a little bit. And this is the learning process. That learning feedback loop, I think, is one of the ways that I would describe intuitive eating, of taking off the training wheels. I don't need to track that judiciously.
Yeah.
So yeah, what else? What other thoughts, comments?
I like what you just said, because that's kind of what I want to get to, is like, I forget what the term for it is, but just sort of like looking and seeing how things feel. Like when you eat, like, yeah, is this baked potato going to fill me up? And then you sort of like, you do that like introspection afterwards, like, yeah, it filled me up, or no, I probably should have eaten more, or I probably should have eaten something different. Like, I want to get into that. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
And what I've been trying to do recently too is like, after I eat something, like just check back in and see how you feel about it. Like, that's part of intuitive eating. Like, okay, you're craving an Oreo, you're craving a Pop-Tart. Okay, eat it and then see how you feel. Like, did that actually satisfy you? Were you actually satisfied, or were you just, maybe you just wanted that or ate that because you're bored?
Yeah,
you know?
Right. So,
I think that that's a good practice, and that's something that I want to do.
Awesome. And again, one of the key things is identifying any negative emotions and self-hate as it's coming up. And your partner sounds very on board with this. I take it you have a good relationship with her where you can talk to her about like what's going on.
Yes.
So I would recommend like filling her in on this. Like, hey, by the way, I have like thought loops of like these negative self feelings generating from like this portal of negative self-talk, and it's starting again. You know, like,
well, she might be watching, so.
Okay. So that could be a very helpful thing to just shine light on it, because that's one of the ways like we stare that portal down, is to talk it out with somebody that like just notice that it's happening. Hey, it's starting to happen again. And that like you just sit with it. Like it doesn't have to be a judgment, because then it's easy like, oh, I'm so stupid. Like I'm judging myself again for having these stupid self-thought loops. Man, what an idiot. You got to watch that too, because that might start popping up too. Like, how stupid am I to have these stupid thoughts? So, and again, it's a game of noticing. It's a game of noticing that it's not the real you, right? Your identity is not these thought loops. It's just, you have portals you got to squash eventually. And these portals are popping up, and a new one pops up. He's got, oh, there's another one. That's the weapon. You got to just notice, oh, there's another portal popping up, and just sit with it and stare at it.
Yeah. Oh man, but that's like a huge undertaking to think about. Yeah, how to get rid of the negative self-talk. Like, yeah, that doesn't really happen as fast as losing weight does sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to take time. And this is where also coaching and therapy can be good. Oh, wow. # plug. Healthy Gamer GG.
Nice.
They have coaching for this type of thing. If you enjoyed this discussion, it's kind of similar format where the coaches try to help you explore your feelings and help you get unstuck. And I think that is like, you know, check it out. It might be a good fit. That and also therapy.
Open.
There you go. Awesome. So, Zelda, what else? Do you have any other questions or thoughts?
No, I guess. No, you got any questions for me? Chat, have any questions?
Yeah, any questions in chat? And was anything particularly helpful or anything stand out to you for takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of pointed out that I like rules to follow, and you know, part of me was coming here to think, all right, we're going to come up with the plan. We're going to have the set of rules. But I think that what I've learned is, you know, hey, we just got to tackle the negative emotions. We got to tackle, like you said, the portal that is just spewing out a lot of this stuff that keeps redirecting you away from being whole, I guess, right? And that is a bit more untangible than just eat this, lift that. It's more like, hey, don't be sad no more. and then
Yeah.
it's not really an easy thing to do.
Yeah. You know what's funny? A lot of the bros who are like, bro, just eat less and move more.
Yeah.
I would wager a guess that a lot of them are on autopilot intuitive eating, and they probably aren't weighed down with a lot of negative emotions. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure some of them are fueling themselves with negative self-hate too. But some of them I have met, and I don't think they're fueled by, they're not weighed down with that. And so they forget how easy life can be when you're not weighed down constantly and you're not wearing like a 50-pound vest everywhere you go. So that's, I think, something that gets missed a lot for the mental health aspect when it comes to to fitness and carrying these out. Because you've been at my channel on Twitch so much that you know, okay, to lose weight, reduce calories, increase activity. We talked about all these basic strategies, tips, and tools, but that's not what you need right now. What you need right now is we got to unburden you so that you're free to tackle these problems and not be as debuffed, if you will. So, anyway, I don't think there's any questions in chat. It's a lot of admiration, a lot of hearts. So, I think this is pretty much it. Zelda, thank you for coming on. Is there anything we can plug? Anywhere people can find you for anything? If you don't have to, you don't have to plug anything if you don't want to.
I was gonna plug one thing. Me and my partner are playing through Resident Evil 8 right now. So if anybody wants to check that out, we'll probably
Which channel?
Again
what is
tonight.
It? Give it to me. Zelda Dashik? Is that it?
No. It's on her channel. So Sci-Fi Chick 16.
Okay, Sci-Fi Chick 16. Doing a shout out. Go check them out. Do Resident Evil, twitch.tv/Sci-Fi Chick 16. If you want to see they can find you there, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. So, all right. That's pretty much it. So, Zelda, thank you so much for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you like the content, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Also, follow us on Twitch and leave the notifications on. Feed your brain, feed your body, and see you next time.